this year we will start the year with talking about pre-approval and pre-qualification. As we start the new years, we all want more transaction this year, more than last year. I'm sure we do. Do you, Richard?
Absolutely.
Yes, which means we need more listing, we need more buyers. And when we talk about buyer, we're talking about cash buyer, but we all know cash buyer are not all around. We have a lot of buyer that needs to be financed, and to be financed, they need to go through a pre-approval or pre-qualification process. And that's why today we have Richard Thatcher with Movement Mortgage. Hi, Richard.
Hello, good morning, Happy New Year.
Good morning, Happy New Year. Today you are going to talk about pre-qual vs pre-approve. Is there a difference?
There's a huge difference, not only in the securing of the financing, but acquiring the property altogether. So yeah, we'll go through that. But yeah, the big difference and very important to agents.
Okay, so let's start with pre-qualification.
Okay.
That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Can I be pre-qual and buy a house just after? Can you talk a little bit about what is pre-qual?
So typically a pre-qualification is going to be someone like myself, just a loan officer, not necessarily a decision maker, is going to probably pull credit, maybe briefly overlook your income and assets, and say, yeah, you know what, based on what I see, you're pre-qualified. But that is not a decision that I can make as far as lending you money.
So you are assuming that
Correct.
that person
My
is
best guess.
pre-qual.
Correct.
So are you really taking this decision just on what the person is telling you?
Sometimes yes. A lot of times, like I said, we will pull credit. So we want to see if there's any foreclosures or anything. We'll look at the income to make sure that they do have a job and that the income supports the property that they want to purchase. But that's only a little bit of the story. So a lot of things can change by the time it goes from me into an underwriter, and that could be 10, 15 days into a transaction on a pre-qualification. So
let's say out of 100% of people who get pre-qual, how many really do get the loan at the end? So I think generally there's probably about a 30% fallout rate when it comes to pre-qual to closing the loan, because there's a lot that has to be done from an underwriting standpoint that someone like me who's a loan officer doesn't see, doesn't recognize, maybe doesn't understand, that can be declined in the process of a pre-qual to closing on the loan. So do you think it is important for a buyer to go through a pre-qual first before going through a pre-approval, just to make sure they are ready to purchase a house? I think that both are important. I think the initial pre-qual step to get the buyer out looking, or to kind of find out what they should be looking for. Obviously, you can pre-qual within an hour and say, hey, look, from what I see, this is kind of the box they fit into. Maybe start sending properties. But for me, that's about as good as a pre-qual is. I wouldn't send out agents or offers without an actual pre-approval from an underwriter. Okay. Do you see a lot of agents submitting an offer with pre-qual letter and seller accepting the offer? Do you think it happened often, and do you think it's a good thing or not? So yeah, I mean, for a long time, that's kind of been the industry standard, is they've kind of made us the decision maker when accepting offers. Yeah, it still happens. That's kind of what the industry does, but that's not the right way to do it. And as a buyer's agent, when you present something greater than a pre-qual letter, for one, it's going to move you into a better position to have the offer accepted, because the listing agent can say to the seller, not only are they approved, but here's the letter from the underwriter stating that they are in fact underwritten. So now when it comes to the seller, do you think the seller, when they receive the offer with the pre-qual letter, do you think they understand the difference when they get the offer, that it's a pre-qual letter and not a pre-approval? And do you think the real estate agent should disclose to the seller, hey, this is a pre-qual letter, and it doesn't mean that the client is going to be approved? Exactly right. Yeah. So a good listing agent will submit pre-quals to the seller with the caveat that, hey, look, this is pre-qualed, so we've got some guy somewhere that has said, hey, the income looks good, the credit looks good, but that's all we have. They will also in turn say, not only is this pre-qualed, it's pre-approved. Here's the letter from the underwriter, from the company, from the guy sitting somewhere
And that's going to hold a ton more water than just, some guy sitting behind a bank desk at, one of the big banks saying, yeah, it looks good to me.
Yeah, so let's talk about pre-approval now. Mm-hmm. Can you describe a little bit what is a pre-approval?
Yeah, so when I was saying, basically pre-quals and pre-approvals are both good, because when you get pre-qualified, if anybody who's been in the business long enough can generally say, hey, look, I've looked at their income, the credit is good, they've got the assets to support the down payment. This is kind of the range they want to stay in. Start sending them, maybe houses that fit in the range, see what they like. But with a pre-approval, you don't stop there. What you'll do is you'll continue to gather the documents that are required to submit, to put in front of an underwriter who is, at the end of the day, the decision maker on the financing. Not myself, not my manager. The underwriter is the decision maker. They're going to say, yes, we will lend this money. They get the file. They go through just as if it was a live transaction. And the good thing about that is, as a loan officer, because this business changes so much, there's a lot of stuff that we're not aware of, or maybe we've missed. That underwriter is going to find that. So not only does that kind of get some stuff out of the way as far as, hey, we need to clean this up before we go into escrow, but it gives you a more solid approval. So this is the woman or man that is going to make the decision at the end that will lend the money to buy the house. They tell us it's good, because they're the decision maker. They're the ones making the financing.
The decision. Now, would you use the word guarantee loan when it comes to pre-approval? Can you get excited, say, woohoo, I get pre-approved, I'm sure I can get the loan?
Yes and no, because at that point, unless something changes in the buyer's circumstance, loss of job, they go and buy a helicopter and now the DTI has changed.
Not a car, a helicopter.
Right. Or the property doesn't appraise, or there's issues with the inspection on the property. But from a lending standpoint, yes, the person who is going to decide to lend the money has said, we will lend the money given these criteria. Obviously, if that changes, then everything else changes.
So now let's say that I just got pre-approved for $500,000, but I find a house for $600,000. Do I have to go through the whole process of the pre-approval again, or how does it work?
No, you don't. I mean, we'll have to rerun the numbers. We'll have to rerun an automated system to make sure that none of the parameters have changed. But really what the underwriter is doing is with certainty checking your assets, checking your income, checking your credit, bankruptcies, all the stuff behind the scenes that a lot of us don't see. Once that is figured out, everything else is just a number. So does $600,000 work based on the income that the underwriter has determined we can use for income? At that point, we would just rerun the numbers. Everything has been verified, their job, their assets, everything. So that doesn't change. That never changes. At that point, we would just need to see, does the income still work? Does the debt ratio still work? So no, there's no process to start over. It's just a matter to see if the numbers actually work.
Okay. Now, when it comes to a pre-approval, do you have any tips to make sure we are ready to be pre-approved? Would it be like get pre-qual first before get pre-approval? What kind of tips do you have to make sure, hey, make sure you do this before you pull your credit and to make sure you are pre-approved?
From a buyer's standpoint, yeah, I mean, just make sure that, all their income and asset stuff is up to date. As far as from an agent standpoint, that's kind of our job. We'll make sure that all the boxes are checked. They don't have to do a lot, and that sometimes we will ask them, hey, we're waiting for this to get them pre-approved, just kind of express to them the urgency that is involved here, especially if this is the property they want. But no, that's pretty much what we'll handle. We'll condition the buyers on what's needed and get them ready.
And now when it comes to the agent, do you think they submit more offer with a pre-qual letter or pre-approval these days?
I think a lot of agents are still submitting pre-qualifications. I think that's kind of bad in two ways. First way is the buyer really has not been approved by an underwriter yet. So they're just kind of out there thinking, oh, everything's good, without someone who's going to make the decision looking at it. That's the first thing that I don't like about the pre-qualification as far as submitting an offer. The second one is time. If you're pre-qualified, that's all you are. You're pre-qualified. You look like you're qualified. If you're pre-approved, you are approved based on the house that you find. That's going to shorten the time of the escrow transaction. especially in this market. That's very important because, like you said in the beginning, cash buyers. That's what everybody's doing, cash buyers. So as a loan officer and with agents that I work with, we want to come up with a strategy. How can we compete with cash buyers? And really a cash buyer can beat everybody out because of the time of the escrow, right? 10 days, I'll have my money. Well, if we can take a buyer that is pre-approved, not just pre-qualified, so they've been through the underwriter, and at this point, we just need the appraisal. If we can get them into a position where they are a cash buyer, in a sense, but for the seller's benefit, there's no cash discount. Because nobody's paying cash full price. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they're not. So if we can take an escrow and say, fine, we'll take your cash buyer, but give us 5 extra days, we'll give you full price for your house. You'll make an extra $20,000 if you'll just sit it out for 5 days. Here's the approval. The underwriter's already looked at it, already approved the loan. We need the appraisal. As long as you no problems with the appraisal, we'll close this in 15 days. So it kind of takes your buyer and it competes with cash offers because essentially all the work has been done up front. That is the most important to me because in this market, everybody's getting beat out by cash buyers. People don't want to sit 45 days and wait for their money. They want to move. They want to go out of state, wherever they're going. And if you can, if you can get them out of their house and money in their hand 12 to 15 days, your offer is not going to always get accepted, but I guarantee it's going to be looked at with a pre-approved buyer.
And that's something with real estate agent. I think it's easier to get a pre-qual letter than a pre-approved letter, so it's going to take more time, correct? Because they have to go through underwriting. So you think, oh, pre-qual letter, you can get one in 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. Here we go, I got my pre-qual letter. But pre-approval might take a little bit more time. And that's something, because you are with Movement Mortgage, and I think that's something you guys are pretty good with, getting a pre-approval letter out right away. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we immediately are going to work with the buyers, and that's going to give you a sense of how dedicated or how realistic your buyers are. Anybody can give me a W-2, a pay stub, and let me run that credit and say, I want to see 15 houses. But if we get them into a position where they're giving me all the items, tax returns, they're putting a little work forward, they got a little skin in the game, you're going to know that that's a serious buyer, that they just don't want to go look at houses on a weekend and kind of see what's going on for 6 months down the road. So that's a benefit. But yeah, our processors and everybody are kind of bonused on speed. So we have 72-hour timelines to get all these documents in, to get it underwritten. Our underwriting time is 7 hours. If I have a buyer that gets me everything I need on day 1, you will have a pre-approval on day 2.
That's very fast for a pre-approval. Usually a lot of people wait, I would say even a week, if it's not
70,
more, to get
72 hours. And a lot of these places out there don't want to do these pre-approvals because for a bank, you're taking resources into a file that may never close with your bank.
No.
So a lot of companies don't want to take that kind of monetary risk, and it costs money to do business like that. But our owner came out and said, hey, look, this is how we're going to do lending. We're going to get them underwritten. There's going to be no surprises, no 27 days into the transaction, and we go, oh, we just found out that back in 2008, they did this and that. That crushes people. The agents, the buyers, the loan officer, no loan officer wants to make that call.
Nope.
So yeah, definitely pre-approval is the way to go. We get them done fast and takes the guesswork out. And again, you're going to compete with these cash offers because you can complete this transaction in 12 to 15 days.
Perfect. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah,
I know
thank
you
you
are with Movement Mortgage. What do you think sets you guys apart from other loan companies?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to the fact that we are so, buyer oriented. Everything we do is based on getting the buyer through the process and into the house as quickly and as seamless as possible. Like I said, a lot of places don't do that because the way we do business, we go through all these steps for someone who may never buy a home with, use us for financing, but we still do it. Our speed, like I said, 12 days, 15-day closing is not out of the question. It's not even that, it's not that weird for us to do that. So
you said 16 days closing?
I just did
from going to escrow?
Yeah, I just actually did a VA condo down here in the San Diego area, 12 days on a VA condo from contract to keys, yeah. And he was kind of the perfect borrower. He was W-2, he was a police officer, he had everything ready. The appraisal went smooth, there was no issues. But yeah, 12 days contract to keys, and that's pretty impressive. And he did beat out a lot of cash deals. Matter of fact, they had an offer that came in $7,000 higher than our buyer, but the agent got aggressive and did a 15-day no loan contingent offer. And we showed him the underwritten approval letter, and the seller said, I want that one because it's good to go.
Wow. Well, thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.